Yeah, so I'm HodlDee. We're going to be kind of going over a little bit of a technical session today. A lot of people like to talk, NGU or ETFs, stuff like that. But if you don't actually own or actually hold your Bitcoin, you don't have any Bitcoin, right? So self-custody is extremely important, and that's what we're going to be talking about today. So, like I said, I work for CoinKite. We sell a plethora of products. Our main staple is our hardware wallet. Our cold storage device is our Mark IV. We also have a new wallet called the Q that I'll be showing on the next slide. It is basically a seed, a seed generator and a signer, right? Some people call it a hardware wallet, but really it's a signing device, right? You have your private key offline. You don't want it touching the internet, but you want to sign transactions, so you're going to use that as your main method to sign and spend your Bitcoin. You actually don't need your hardware wallet past the seed generation to receive money, but when you want to spend it, you have to sign it with something that's offline if you want to be secure. We also sell a seed plate, which is basically a metal plate that you stamp your seeds on, your 12 or 24 words. So if your house burns up in flames and you got a piece of paper, you don't want your money to be gone, right? So you want something that's prone to the elements, fire, water, things like that, and that helps you, have your backup of your seed basically in case your device goes kaput or your house goes up in flames. We also have what's called a tap signer. It's a budget-friendly hardware wallet, very affordable in price. Think of it like a two-factor authentication where you have a wallet on your phone. But you don't want your private key to live on your phone. You want to live offline still, right? Cold storage. So you have a device or a card that is an NFC card that you can tap, put in a PIN, and you can still spend your money a little quicker, a little bit more budget-friendly, but it's still fully offline, and that's the whole point of this. We also have a SAS card here on the bottom. A SAS card is like a gift card. You can load sats onto it and hand it to someone. No on-chain fee, no nothing. You just got to make an on-chain transaction to the card. It's very private, meaning that you could be out in the middle of nowhere making a transaction with whoever you want, and you can hand them the card, and they can hand you the goods. And there's no there's no transaction on-chain, so it's very private. If you lose it though, however, it's like a gift card. It's totally gone. So it's really important to, if you're using one of these, to understand what the trade-offs and risks are of this. We also have a Block Clock Mini and other fun products. We just started selling really cool shirts. Just like the Block Clock is, it shows you the Bitcoin price or the dollar amount in sats, things like that. We really love our products, and we really stand behind them. And we are a hardware wallet company at heart. And we want you to be as secure as possible when storing your own Bitcoin, right? You can keep it on Coinbase, you can keep it on these exchanges, but that comes with a lot of risk and counterparty risk. And you're basically giving up your Bitcoin. You have to request, you say, please, Mr. Exchange person, I really want my money. And they could say, no, fuck you, right? You want your money for yourself, and you don't want to ask anyone for permission. So that's the most important part here. So this is our new Q model. It's a big upgrade from our Mark IV. The 4 key points here is that it has a full QWERTY keyboard, so when you're importing your seed, it's just very easy to use. The MK4 is a T9, so you have to kind of go through the letters, and it's a little bit more of a tedious process. The Q has a full keyboard, so really nice and easy to use. A QR code scanner, so usually when you want to be secure and you don't want to plug in your device to an online computer, you'd use an SD card, you'd import the transaction into your Mark IV, sign it, and then bring it back to your computer. Whereas with the QR code scanner, it's really simple. You just, there's a QR code on the screen, you scan it, and then you basically show it back to your compatible software wallet, and then it's just a lot simpler and faster. So instead of using an SD card, which might be a little tedious for some older folks or some new folks that don't really know what they're doing or may think it's a little too hard. So QR scanner is a great upgrade. Bigger display. The Mark IV is a little bit of smaller display. This has bigger display and power independence, meaning that it's battery operated. So you don't have to be walking around with cables or anything like that. You can just turn it on and walk around and scan, and it's very simple. It's just nice to not have to deal with cables and get tangled up and all that stuff, right? But you can still plug it in if you want. It's a USB-C cable. So I just want to get started off with this first sentence of the Bitcoin white paper, because I feel like a lot of people kind of miss this, or they glance over it and don't understand why this is so important, right? So Bitcoin, a purely peer-to-peer version of electronic cash, would allow online payments to be sent directly from one party to another without going through a financial institution, right? So that means no Coinbase, no Kraken, no nothing. The whole point is to avoid the counterparty risk. You don't want them. You want to be sovereign over your own money. You want to self-custody. You want to be responsible. You want to understand how to do it properly, of course. You can take it step by step, nice and slow. But at the end of the day, again, if you don't have your Bitcoin in your own custody, it is not your Bitcoin. You're asking someone else to either store it for you for a fee and request payouts or withdrawals. But with self-custody, you can do that all yourself. So we're just going to go kind of over the basics, and then we're going to kind of ramp it up into more technical stuff. So hopefully everyone can kind of learn a little bit today. I'm sure some of you in the audience already know this stuff, but hopefully you can learn a little bit at the end. So the most important part is a hardware signing device, right? You want a cold storage device that is fully offline. You don't want your private key living on your phone. You don't want your private key living on the internet in an iCloud server somewhere where someone can take it from you. You want an offline device that's super dumb, that serves one focus or one purpose, and that is to store your private key. And that's what a signing device does, right? It generates your private key, it stores your private key, and then it allows you to sign transactions because you need your private key to send money. So now we're talking about public and private key. So your private key lives fully offline. Your public key is kind of what generates your addresses and allows you to view what you own, right? You use your public key to generate those addresses, and then you can kind of see, okay, how much Bitcoin to have in each address, and all those things. Think of it like an email address, right? You can give out your email address, but people can't send emails from your email, right? You don't really want to give out your public key, but you can give out like an address to someone to send you money. So think of it like an email address, and your private key is like your password, right? You give up your password, or someone finds out your password, then they can start sending your money out of your own wallet or out of your own email. Obviously, you don't want to do that. So what is a watch-only wallet? A watch-only wallet is something that we take your XPub, which is your extension of your public key, and you're importing it into a system like like Sparrow, or it's like a software wallet where you can see everything that you're doing, right? Think of a watch-only wallet like a big glass vault, right? You have your hoard of Bitcoin in this big vault that you can see inside, but there's no way to access it without your key, your private key, right? So public key, XPub, extension of your public key is what you import into a software to see everything that you can do. You can create transactions. You can see what you're doing, but you can't spend any of it without going to your offline device to sign anything out. So you can always receive, you can generate addresses and all that, but you can't spend from it unless you allow your device to spend it for you. And partially signed Bitcoin transaction, PSBT. We're going to be using software called Sparrow. I love Sparrow. It's fantastic. It's a desktop wallet. And we're going to basically be creating a transaction and entering all the parameters like the address, the fee, and showing you kind of the flow of what a transaction actually looks like. And this is called a PSBT because it's partially signed, meaning that I'm creating it, but I need to sign it with my device and then upload that to the companion app again to broadcast it, right? So you can create a transaction, but you can't broadcast it until you sign with your private key. So we like to call that a PSBT. So UTXOs, what the heck is a UTXO? Never heard that in my life. I've only heard of an address. A UTXO is an unspent transaction output, meaning that, think of it like a dollar, like bills, right? If Bob sends me 20 bucks and then he sends me another 20 bucks, I have two bills, I have two UTXOs, and they can be in the same address or different addresses. A lot of people kind of get confused where maybe they're a DCAer and they've taken out $10 a month from an exchange. And they've sent it all to the same address or different addresses. I highly recommend not reusing addresses, but some people do. But every time that you withdraw, you're creating a UTXO. So if you have 10 UTXOs, right, 10 $10 bills, that's 100 bucks, that's going to cost you 70% more than if you just had one $100 bill, right? And I think people just don't really focus on this a lot because they are hodlers like myself and like you guys, and we're not ready to spend our Bitcoin yet. Maybe we are. We're having fun. We're buying stuff with Lightning, and that's no problem. I love spending and replacing. But in the future, when fees are a lot higher, people are going to look back into their wallet and say, holy crap, I'm spending 1 million sats, and it's going to cost me 700,000 sats to spend, right? And that's like 70% of your transaction. Maybe that's a little high, but it could be very high, and you have no idea right now. You've just been DCAing every day or DCAing every week and not really managing your UTXOs properly, and you have tens of thousands of $10 bills in your pocket, and they're filling up, and then when you want to spend, it's going to cost you a lot, right? You have to bribe the miner a lot of fees to spend that. So a big thing people mess up is your address can have multiple UTXOs in the same address, right? If you spend the same address, it's not like you're combining those $10 bills into $20, $30, $40 bills. They're all still separate. And then you'll see when you spend it, it'll be like this massive graph with 100 into 1, and it's going to cost you an arm and a leg. So we don't want that to happen. So that's why we're here today. So just quick, brief, what size of Bitcoin do you recommend per UTXO? So 0.001 Bitcoin is 100,000 sats. Is that enough? Probably not, no. 1 million sats, 0.01 Bitcoin. Is that enough? Maybe. It's going to cost you about 10%. It depends on how much you want to pay later if you're willing to accept that, right? It also depends on the fee rate. We're going to get to that a little bit later. But 1 million sats is at the very low end. 1 million sats is like $1,000 Canadian, right? I know it's a lot, but it'll be worth it down the line to save up that much before you withdraw. Or just consolidate your transactions while fees are cheaper right now, right? Fees are at 10 sats per byte right now, and that's probably like 60 cents to make a transaction, which is super cheap. But in the future, when adoption is growing and more people are using Bitcoin, those fees are going to go up, and I think we take these low fees right now for privilege, and we're very fortunate to have such low fees right now. 0.1 Bitcoin is 10 million sats, and 1 Bitcoin is 100 million sats. There's 100 million sats in a Bitcoin, 2.1 quadrillion sats in Bitcoin in general. I highly recommend 1 million sats at least, but if you can go up to 5 million, 10 million sats, you're going to be paying less in fees. We all hate taxes, so why the heck would you want to pay 10% of your transaction in miner fees alone just to make a Lightning payment or to open a Lightning channel or something like that, right? Like, we don't want to be robbed, so we want higher UTXOs so that we don't have to spend more in the future. So we're just kind of comparing fees right now. So right now, like I said, we're very fortunate. Fees are at 10 sats per byte. When I say 10 sats per byte, it means how many bytes am I pushing onto chain? There's only 4 megabytes in a block, a Bitcoin block. The actual size is 1 megabyte, but virtual bytes are actually 4 times more. So that's how we actually made the SegWit upgrade and made it to 4 megabytes. Regardless, it depends on how much you're pushing to change. So every UTXO is roughly a certain amount, and when you can start consolidating more, it adds a little bit more bytes per UTXO. It's not 1-to-1. It's not like, as you can see here, right, like 10 outputs, so 10 into 1 would be 7,000 sats right now, and one output, right, meaning 1-to-1, as in I have 1 million sats and I'm sending it to someone else, it's going to cost me 1,000 sats. So, right, it's not 1 and 10,000, it's 1,000 and 7,000. So it's 7 times more, not 10 times more. but it's still very expensive. So for example, we have 1 million sats. Okay, do we have it in 1 UTXO or do we have it in 10 UTXOs? If we have it in 10 UTXOs, we have 10 100,000K sat UTXOs. So right here, if we wanted to spend that at 1,000 sats per byte, which is very high, right? It would cost us 700,000 sats to spend 1 million sats, right? That's 70% of your overall transaction just going to fees alone. And I know that sounds high. People are like, there's no way fees are going to get to 1,000 sats per byte, right? But at the halving, there was blocks that had fees at 1,000 sats per byte. They're actually higher. And that was just some random gambling degens, you know, just bidding up block space. Imagine when nation states are settling trades between each other, companies are settling between each other, right? Like once more adoption comes, fees are going to get higher, and not everyone can, at this time, self-custody. Like you can't self-custody 8 billion people. You can only self-custody about 20 million people. That's a very small amount. So again, you just kind of want to future-proof yourself a little bit here. And fees right now are only 10 sats per byte, so we're lucky. But in the future, they will be higher, right? So even if you had 1 million sat UTXO, you'd be spending at 1,000 sats per byte, 10% of that, almost 11% of that, right? So if you can get those fees up, or if you can get those amounts up, then you will be saving money later, right? We want to save money. We're here to, you know, get away from corrupt money. So I don't want to keep bribing miners a shit ton of money. I'm willing to accept maybe 1 to 2%, sure, but you know, 10, 20, 30, or 70%, like that's a lot. I don't want to I don't want to do that. And it's really unfortunate because I think a lot of people don't focus on this, and a lot of people in third world countries that, you know, are saving some money, and you know, $50 is a lot to them, and they have it in a UTXO, that could be dust. That could be total dust, and it could not be spent, right? At 1,000, or sorry, even 100 sats per byte, 10,000 sats is dust, because that would be like that would just be sending to fees alone, right? If anything is lower than 100,000 sats, which is $100 at 1,000 sats per byte, that is dust, right? There's going to be a lot of people that wake up one day and say, holy shit, fees are so high, I'm ready to open up a Lightning channel, or I'm ready to use my Bitcoin, and they're going to say, oh crap, I can't even use my Bitcoin. It's literally there, sitting there. I can't even pay the fee to move it, right? And that's really, that really sucks. So I'm trying to make that, hopefully people are more aware of that. All right, so we got into UTXOs. They're dollar bills. There can be multiple UTXOs in the same address. So we're going to basically show you a demo of how to create a transaction, how to set your fee, what the flow looks like, and then we're going to show you how to RBF, which means replace by fee. So replace by fee is, for example, you set your fee rate really low. Right now, fees are at 10 sats per byte, but somehow the adoption has been growing, and you know you're kind of waiting in line in queue, and your transaction's not getting through. You set too low of a fee rate. The usage is too high, and you're too far back in the line, right? Fees on Bitcoin are a priority structure where whoever pays more than you is going to be you know, included in a block faster, right? You want to pay your buddy, he wants it in a day, you know, but it's going to take you like a week because you set your fee way too low. So replace by fee is basically creating a new PSBT, a new partially signed Bitcoin transaction, adding a bigger fee to it, and then rebroadcasting that same transaction, and then it will basically replace the existing transaction and have a higher fee for the miner to say, oh, you know what, I'll include that because you're willing to pay me more, right? So replace by fee, RBF just means replace by fee. So we're going to get into Sparrow here. I know it looks a little daunting, but I want to kind of introduce you to Sparrow if you haven't seen it before. It is, again, a desktop wallet. It is not for mobile yet. If you want to use mobile, you can use Nunchuk. Highly recommend Nunchuk or Blue Wallet, but Nunchuk is really good, much better. So as you can see here, we have on the left, we have Bitcoin transactions, we have our send tab, our receive tab, address tab, UTXOs, and settings. As you can see, if you can see actually in this little bottom corner, there's a little yellow pill. I don't know if you can see it. This means that we're connected to a public node. I don't know if you guys have been listening to the sessions earlier today. I think someone, maybe Ben, was talking about running a node, and that's a great topic. This one is a public node, meaning that we're taking information, we're pinging a public node for data or for information. If you want to be more private, you'd want to run a private Electrum server, and that pill would be blue, or run Bitcoin Core just in general, and that'd be a green pill. So just something to be aware of. This is the UTXO page. So as you can see, we have the date of when we put these into our wallet, and the value on the right-hand side here is how much is in each UTXO and what address the UTXO is in. So we don't really like to reuse addresses. So each address here will be different, which is really nice. But you can, again, you can receive to the same address if you want. You're affecting your privacy, because on chain you can see all the transactions that were sent to that same address. So we can have a label on it as well if we want, just for accounting and making sure where does my Bitcoin go, or if you have like KYC or non-KYC Bitcoin. It's important not to consolidate those two together, because if you have non-KYC Bitcoin, you consolidate it with KYC Bitcoin, it all becomes KYC Bitcoin, because on chain you can see that merger. So we're going to click on a UTXO here. We've selected one in our address. We're going to send 500,000 sats. That is pretty low. This is just a demo, so we're just doing a small amount here. But again, you'd ideally want 1 million sats or higher. So we're going to click on the bottom here, send selected, and then we're going to show this page here. This page is your PSBT, where you're going to be sending your where you're going to be sending your sats, what address you're going to be sending to, your label, your fee rate, and it's going to show you like this flow on the bottom here. So we have our pay to address. We already know where we're sending to, so we had that pasted in there. Our label is RBF tutorial. The amount we're willing to send is 250,000 sats, so we're actually going to actually receive change back. Similar to when you buy a coffee, you give them a $20 bill that you get change back, right? So you're going to have a change output as well. So we have 250,000 sats. Our fee rate here, as you can see, is 8.91 sats per byte. So our fee is 1,250 sats. And as you can see here, there's one UTXO on one side, right? One output. And we're splitting it into two here. The RBF tutorial, which is the address that we're sending to at the top. And then the middle one here is our change back. So we're going to be receiving about 250,000 sats minus the fees back to us. And then the fee that goes to the miner. Okay, so it's like a 1 in, 2 out transaction. The fee doesn't count because we're just sending that to the miner. It's not actually an output, it's just a fee on top of our transaction here. So we have all our parameters. We have one UTXO selected, and we're going to send it at 8.9 sats per byte. So we're going to click Create Transaction, and we're going to go to a next screen here. Okay, so we see our flow chart still. We see that we've created the transaction, but we haven't spent anything yet. We haven't signed anything yet. We need to go onto our cold card queue or our other signing device, and we need to somehow get the information to here, sign it offline, and then get that data back onto Sparrow to broadcast to the Bitcoin blockchain. So what are we going to do? So we're going to click Finalize Transaction for signing, and we're going to do a few. We have a few options here, right? Since we have the queue, we have the option to show the QR code, and it will show up on our queue saying, this is the address, this is your change output, this is the fee, are you sure you want to sign this? And it's really important to have a screen on your hardware wallet, because that's kind of like the verification that what you're signing is actually what you're sending, right? If there's no screen, there's no way to tell if the Sparrow wallet is lying to you, right? So it's really important to have that. And so you can either do the QR code, you can do NFC as well, or you can do the, you can plug it in if you want. If you're a new beginner, I wouldn't recommend that, but you can plug it in if you want, or you can use the SD card method where you load it onto an SD card, plug it into your cold card, sign it, take the SD card back out, plug it back into your computer, and broadcast that finally signed transaction. But I know that's a little daunting for some people, so we recommend QR code. So once we've loaded that finally signed transaction from our cold card back onto Sparrow, this bar will load up, meaning that it has been it's a finally signed Bitcoin transaction, still a PSBT, but it has all the required signatures to broadcast to the chain. So we're going to click Broadcast Transaction, And you're going to see in the top right-hand corner that 250,000 sats has left your wallet. And at the top there it's cut off, but it's going to be 251,250 sats because it's including that fee. So now what? Okay, so we've broadcast our transaction. How do I know what's going on? Well, we can see on the blockchain option here, it says it's unconfirmed, and we have a transaction ID at the top. So there's this little button, it's a little square with a little arrow, and we're going to go to mempool.space. It's a block explorer that shows you kind of what's going on behind the scenes. So this is mempool.space. It is a block explorer like we were saying, and this is our transaction. As you can see at the bottom here, this flow is very similar to Sparrow, obviously a little different, maybe a little bit more artistic per se, but very similar, right? You have your one UTXO on the left here, and you have your two outputs on here, and then this little strand is the fee at the top. And as you can see on the right-hand side here, this little arrow, okay? So we are a little bit back in the queue, right? We have 11 sats per byte is the required amount to get into the next block, but we don't want to wait, right? It says ETA over here in several hours or more. Now, you know, we are low time preference, so we can wait. But there are some people that don't want to wait and think that this is way too long. I don't want to have it confirmed in a few hours. I want it confirmed now, right? I want it confirmed in the next 10 minutes. I want to bump this up. My fee rate of 1,250 sats is not enough. My fee rate of 8.93 sats per vbyte is not enough. I need to bump it up to at least 11, probably 12, so that I can guarantee that it's into the next block. So what are we going to do? We're going to go back to Sparrow, and we're going to click on this little button here. So we're back at the Bitcoin transactions page. You can see this little hand with a plus sign, which means replaced by fee. And we're going to go back to that PSBT page here, and we're going to bump up the fee. So our initial fee was 1,250 sats per byte, or sorry, 1,250 sats. But now we're bumping it up to 1,800 sats, right? A little bit more. We want to bribe the miner. We want them to include this transaction a little quicker. So we bumped it up from 33 cents to 48 cents, which we think is enough. And now our fee rate, instead of 8.9, it is now 12.8. So we would do the same thing where we would create this transaction. We would have to get our hardware wallet to sign it again, right? Because our private key lives fully offline. We don't want it online, so we want to bring it offline, sign it, and then broadcast it again. And once we do that, we'll get a new transaction ID. So now we have a new transaction here. We are now in the earliest block here, the next block to be mined. We bumped our fee to 12.9 sats per byte. And as you can see here, this RBF history, it shows you we went from 8.9 to 12.9. Now this RBF history isn't on-chain. This is just for show on mempool.space for 24 hours. So if you go back to this transaction in a few days, you're like, where's my RBF history? It's not existent, right? It doesn't exist. It just replaced it, and then it will include the new transaction with the higher fee instead of the old one. So it still says unconfirmed here, right? It's red, unconfirmed. Now we have to wait. So we have to wait, and we got bumped out. So what I did is I bumped it up again. I bumped it up to, I believe, 22 sats per byte, and we got included into the next transaction here. So one confirmation, just now, as you can see, our RBF history was from 8.9 to 12.9 to 22 sats per byte. We obviously overpaid a little bit, but the minimum in that block was 15 sats per byte, as you can see there. So we bumped it up. It says optimal, but we paid a little bit too much, but that's not a bad thing. It's a couple extra cents. So now we know that if we're stuck in the mempool and the fees went up super high and we want to bump it up and we want to get included sooner, then we can do that with Sparrow. And so this whole talk is kind of just about UTXO management, RBF, and self-custody. And I think these things should be taken really seriously. And I don't think people talk about this enough. And I think it's a really important subject. And it's just better to plan ahead, right? You want proactive. You want to be proactive. You don't want to be reactive, right? You want to have your UTXOs higher in general, so that when you create those transactions like that, you have plenty of sats to pay these fees, to pay these miners. Whereas if you have multiple UTXOs, you have all these $10 bills, and you want to spend, it's going to cost you an arm and a leg to do that. So yeah, I think it's really important. And I just want to say thank you for coming up. Do you have a question? Okay, sure, yeah. We have like 3 minutes. Quick, yeah, okay, that's good. Thank you. I also know that, you know, some people may be like, this is boring, I already know this, and some people are like, what the heck did he just say? You know what I mean? So like, take it slow, learn, right? The only way to learn is to practice, and you can do this with $5, right? You don't have to send $1,000 to practice UTXO management and start moving around your Bitcoin, right? Just practicing moving it around and understanding what is happening behind the scenes is really important. So. Yeah.
Thanks, Dee. Dee's amazing. I know him very well. I love this. I love his work. So this is Suman. You know me. Dee, I had a question about mining. Because if I'm mining Bitcoin, how is that going to affect it? Because you know, when you're mining small amounts, right? So does the UTXO still apply for mining?
Yeah. So when you're mining, sometimes you'll have a payment threshold where you'll get your rewards like maybe 10,000 sats at a time, but when you're ready to withdraw, you say I want to make a withdrawal at 1 million sats or 5 million sats. That might take a few months, but yeah, you don't want to withdraw every single one of your Bitcoin mining rewards all at once, because then you'd have all these like almost like dollar bills, right? And then it's going to cost you. It'll basically become dust. So you want to have a mining threshold or a withdrawal threshold for your mining pool. Yeah.
Thanks. Let's say I have a really, really low time preference and I want to get the rock bottom price. How long will the transaction live? Like, let's say the market is at 22, I'm putting it at like 3. Is it going to live like 6 months, or does the transaction get canceled because it's just waiting and taking space?
Okay, so the question, yeah, will it be bumped out if it's a low fee rate? So it depends on the time. It depends on how many people are using the chain. By default, everyone's node runs about 30 megabytes of transactions. So say, for example, yours is sitting at 10 sats per byte, but the fee rate's at like 100 sats per byte. You'll likely be okay and not be kicked out. But there is a memory limit, right? For some nodes, it's much larger, so they actually hold on your transaction. But yeah, once fee rates get super high, say they're 500 sats per byte consistently, and your fee rate is 5 sats per byte, you might be kicked off and say, sorry, you're going to have to either rebroadcast at a higher fee rate, or nobody's just going to mine this because there's such a big line that your transaction is not paying enough or meaningful enough to be included. So, yeah, awesome. So I just want to thank you all for coming again, and then feel free to reach out to me on Twitter, or if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. Thanks, guys.